you had another case that you wanted to mention, and that was about somebody who forgot to have their paperwork signed.
That's becoming an epidemic. So let's be candid about it. I have very strong feelings that the insurance company's position is not well taken. And I do believe that if this goes to the federal district court, on state appellate court, I think the state appellate court is going to slap the hand of the insurance company. And here's the reason why. Think of this logically. You have a policy of insurance, and in fact, an agent signs for you. Well, that's perfectly permissible. That's the Rihanna's house because she was not there at the time the house closed escrow. Her agent signed for her. So why isn't it that a home inspector can't have an extra, for an example, contract with them when they don't have it in hand before they go? And in fact, when the buyer doesn't come, it doesn't make any difference because you have agency and the agent can sign it. So that's one way.
Right.
The other thing is, what is the real issue in the policy? The real issue is, how has the insurance company been harmed? If, in fact, the report is written after receiving a signed contract, and let's just assume the contract is the next day, what difference does it make if no report is written? So, therefore, no damages can arise. So, think this out logically.
No, those are good points right there.
We have two cases going now in which an individual showed up. They didn't have an extra contract. She's a professional woman. And to make the long story short, she said, I apologize. I will be at your office at 9 a.m. And the inspector said, you realize I'm not going to start this report until I have a signed contract. And she said, that's fine.
Start the report or the inspection?
Start the report. They did the inspection because what came about was,
interesting.
The inspector that was on it, unfortunately, got sick, and they called at the last minute to get somebody out.
Right.
There's no question that he sent the contract. There's no question of that, and there's no question that she meant to sign it, and she meant to bring it with her when she came, just to make it easy and to hand it off.
Was this back in the 1980s?
No, this is a couple 3 years ago. And 2 years later, with still insurance policy at stake and no problems whatsoever in paying the premiums, they denied coverage, saying it says you must have a signed contract before. The question is, in insurance situations, where is the damage to the client that it was done at the time he started writing the report the next day, the next morning? She showed up at 9 a.m. the next morning.
This is why you're a lawyer, because those are good arguments right there.
So I think that they're in trouble, and I think that they are pushing this. And of course, the insurance companies, in all fairness, are trying to limit the amount of problems that occurred and fraud that does occur in this industry with a late signed contract, especially when you have a 2-year gap in between.
Right.
So there are points on both sides, but the merits go to the insured because the insurer owes a fiduciary duty. So that's how I think that's going to come down. But who knows? We haven't seen a test case yet.
Interesting stuff. So,
well, let me stop you for a second. I wanted to tell you.
Stop me. I'm just starting.
Yeah, I'm just. I've got these cups, and you know that my staff doesn't like the cups I have. So I just want you to know that I'm going to do a pitch for you right now and say, where do I get these cups? Because I'm going to be saying that the minute we get off the air.
All right. So you like my coffee mug?
I like the coffee mug.
Well, that's good. I just recently purchased these. I initially did it just for my podcast guests, so they have a takeaway after taking the time coming out here and listening to me yap at them. So they're 15-ounce coffee mugs. You can get them in, I believe it's a 12-ounce too, and it's all on my Shopify store. So T-shirts too. Buying a home, don't panic.
Right, don't panic.
So anyway, that's for you to take home. I'll clean it off when you're done and box it up for you, and you can take it with you.
No, you're not going to box it up because I'm going to take it because I'm going to go to Starbucks.
You're going to put some coffee in it. There you go. All right, sounds good. So basically, when we spoke yesterday, a couple days ago, about doing this little show right now, you mentioned a few things, and it got me thinking. All right, so nowadays, I don't understand why anybody would even attempt to start an inspection without paperwork in order. Come on, my listeners have heard me say this at least 50 times so far. I say this all the time. You can't let these customers dictate how you run your business. You just can't do that. That's not acceptable. Just like in your report, you're going to have a not acceptable tab where you check off or needs attention or appears serviceable, appears functional, right? So this goes under the not acceptable category in your brain. When someone says, "Oh yeah, we'll just do it there. We'll just do it when we get." No, ma'am, you won't. I'm not even leaving the house until I have that in place. But I'm going to make it real easy for you. I'm going to send you a link. The link I'm going to send you is going to have all this information right at your fingertips on your smartphone. Just make believe you're buying a pair of shoes. It's that easy, but that's the best way to describe it. Okay, so I can't make it any more simpler except for driving to their house, opening my phone, or better yet, opening their phone and saying, "Here, just check that little box after you've read this, and then fill out your credit card information." That's all I can do to make it easier. It's so easy. So I don't have much sympathy for someone who is saying in these recent years that they are going to a job, starting the job, hoping the client's going to show up and sign off. So that brings up a multiple of questions for you. So
let me jump in 1 second.
All right.
Agency law in the state of California says that an agent for a buyer has the ostensible authority, that's ostensible now, remember that word, ostensible authority to sign for them. So if the agent is going to be there, always have a secondary blank copy with you all the time. You can't go wrong. And the minute you give one out, you put another one in your bag. You always have them there.
But see, there you go, going backwards in time. You keep talking about paper. Paper's a thing of the past. That's where I'm stopping you right now, because you got to stop doing that. No more paper. There's no more bringing an extra copy. This is all digital. Yeah. Everything is digital. If you are a home inspector and you're still doing paper contracts, you need to wake up. This is crazy. There's so much technology out there nowadays to make this so easy. It'll blow your mind if you haven't touched on it yet. Try Spectora software. There's other ones out there, but that's the one I use. It's the best. It comes with all kinds of bells and whistles. Let you know when people sign your contracts. Let you know when people pay you. Everything.
Wait a minute. You hit the magic word. It's payment. That's the motivating tool. And you're right.
Right. So here's a little question for you. So let's say, hang on, let me go back in time for a minute. I'm going to go back to the 80s for a second.
Just hold 1 second. I just want to interrupt you by saying we only accept new cases in which there is a signed contract before I see it. So I do the same thing you do, but I'm just thinking about the brand new inspector who just comes out, who doesn't have all this worldly knowledge, and no matter what, just have it with you anyway.
If you're a new inspector and you don't know what to do, just keep listening to this podcast, because I talk about this stuff for new inspectors all the time. I'm always trying to help people avoid issues. I tripped a couple of times when I started. I get no qualms about saying that. It happens. It's called a learning curve. You're going to learn a new business. You're going to trip over some stuff. Oh, well, I learned. Okay, I'm not going to do that again. So let me go back to the 80s for a second. So when I was growing up, let's say I sold you a car, a used car, and then we didn't finish the paperwork, but you took the car. So there was an old saying, I can't remember the exact way the sentence was laid out. I've been racking my brain since yesterday trying to think of this. Possession is
9/10 the law.
9/10 the law. That's it. That's what I was looking for. So possession is 9/10 the law. So I was thinking about that in regards to somebody starting a home inspection, a home inspector starting his job, going to the property, walking on the property, and getting started. without paperwork in place. However, the client already paid him. Does that have any weight either way?
That's certainly an argument. There's an implied in fact contract, of course.
Right.
But the insurance...
So you paid for something you didn't sign. So they paid for something they didn't sign.
No, that's not quite it.
Okay.
They did sign something. They didn't sign the contract. It's an implied in fact contract. The question is, will the insurance company, in their charitable way, ever agree to that? And of course not. So the key to this again is be safe. Just think it out. Now, another point you can say is that you sometimes go to areas in which you can't get the internet. There are places in Pasadena, there's no way you're going to get the internet by way of your phone. You're just not going to get it. Or in a canyon.
That's true.
So therefore, make sure you have it done before you leave. And also make sure that everything that you have on your computer is backed up.
Yeah, cloud. You got to have a cloud. You want a cloud-based software. That way that you can always access it and upload it pretty much from anywhere, unless you're having a bad service day. But so back to the payment thing.
Sure.
So you got paid, but they didn't sign. So how can they argue a case against you if they agreed to pay you for something they didn't sign? That to me doesn't make any sense.
Because
one should mean the other in my head.
It's not mutually exclusive.
Okay.
So in other words, they paid you for an inspection.
Mm-hmm.
Then now it's the interpretation of whose inspection, whose rules, what are the conditions. For an example, you use my contract and you know that you have a 1-year statute of limitations, and I put that additional provision in saying this is less than by statute in California. Right. Why do you do that? Because you give them full communication and you have a 1-year statute, not a 4-year statute under Business and Profession Code 7199. The answer is, why should you give a longer contract when you don't need it? Because my case and my contract is absolutely enforceable.
Interesting. So, wow. All right. So that doesn't work with the car scenario. It's not the same.
It's not the same thing at all. But the other thing is you have a secondary, you have DMV. And DMV has certain regulations too.
Yeah.
So again, one is much simpler than the other. But you should have everything digital. You should have a program. But what if the times are really slow? And like the same period we just went through not too long ago, where getting a home inspection is really tough.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when somebody calls you up and said the home inspector that was supposed to come is unfortunately sick and just can't make it, or has just been in a car accident, can you pitch hit for me? Obviously, you want to make a good showing, you want to be there, and you want to get on the good list for this big client.
And you can do that from the comfort of your own desk.
You can. Mm-hmm. The question is doing it.
Well, I think it's just a bad decision. I think overall, describing the condition you just described, last minute, the other guy fell through. I get those all the time. I get calls like that. Hey, can you come do an inspection right now? I'm like, no, I'm already on an inspection. Why? What happened? Inspector got sick or he just couldn't make it. I can't help you. I can do it tomorrow. I can't do it right now. So, you know, with that scenario you just pitched, I just think anybody making that decision without taking the proper steps to cover themselves, that was a dumb move. That's it. It doesn't matter who's calling you. And look, this is a home inspection. This ain't surgery. This is not somebody going under heart surgery or something like that. This is just simply someone to go and look at a fucking house. So it's not like it's a total emergency. It's not. Okay, let's be realistic here. It's not an emergency. They can wait a day. So if I showed, for example, somebody was supposed to be there 9 a.m. this morning to do an inspection. He calls in sick. He can't make it. Oh, shit. Now they're in scrambling. I get it. So now they get somebody to come in at 2 or 3 in the afternoon today, the same day. What do you think they're going to get done with that report? Absolutely nothing. Even if they got the report the same day, they'll go through the inspection. They'll be told, hey, look, you need to call the HVAC specialist because there's problems there. Or you need to call the roofer because your roof looks like it's leaking. So, yeah, you can run with that information to line up a roofer and an HVAC guy, but you can't do much with that report because, first of all, you're not going to have the report the same day. You're going to have it the next day. So once again, this is not that big of an emergency. So anybody forgetting about all their policies for their company just to get a paycheck is ridiculous. I think that's ridiculous.
It has limitations.
What does?
The program, the policy that you just set forth.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, saying it differently, let's assume that you and your wife are going out to buy a house, and you've got trip plans. You're getting on a 6 a.m. flight the next morning to go to Brazil. Well, bottom line of it is that you want to have enough time to get it all done. You can send it digitally, even across the oceans.
Mm-hmm.
So again, reading it, isn't it? It's getting everything done at the last minute. The point of it is a lawyer no more accepts an assignment to represent a client without a signed contract. The same thing applies to home inspectors. It really does. So have it. Get it done right. Do it the first time.
Right.
Don't have all of these ancillary problems
Mm-hmm.
that arise later. Don't do it. Just have a policy, get it set up, have it automatic, and just get it done.
Yeah.
Besides,
So
get paid.
yeah.
Get paid.
Well, a lot of times I've had this happen quite often. I'll send out my contracts are in the same email as my payment link. There's contract. If I'm doing multiple services, then there's a payment link right there. It's all right there on the same block. A lot of times people just go right to the payment because they think that's all I want. And I'm like, and then I realize because my software lets me know when I get paid. I'm like, okay, well, they didn't sign anything. So I just go double check, make sure they didn't sign it. Then I send them, hey, thank you for the payment. I really appreciate that. However, you forgot to sign the inspection contracts and agreements. You need to read those first and sign them. So that does happen, but it's just sending out another email or text. Hey, you need to take care of this because nothing's confirmed. So they think because they paid me, everything's done. No, that's not it. So if that happens, you have to jump on that quick and make sure they know that, hey, you got to sign all these.
We all have to have due diligence.
Yeah, I'll have to.
And you have to dot the I's and cross the T's. I mean, that's clear. Let's talk about that just for a moment in the area of the contract, since you brought it up. Any home inspector who allows himself to be placed in one of the alphabet soup mediation companies that are all over everywhere that are very expensive, or to be forced into a superior court case is making a major mistake. And I suggest across the board not to use a California company. There are national companies that have arbitration programs like construction dispute resolution, in which they have a program set up with attorneys who have got 20, 30 years of experience, and they arbitrate the case, and they comply with the terms and conditions of the contract. Right. In California, they have a rule that basically says if a arbitrator decides that it just doesn't seem fair to abide by a contract that both parties want, it's up to the option of that mediator, binding arbitrator, to render a different decision. I say, if you have a contract, make sure it's honored. Both sides honor it. But I would go to a program that is a national arbitration service like construction defect resolution. And I have never heard a complaint. Now, I've been doing this 47 years. I've never heard a complaint. They can't say, if they swear that they are not going to sue you after 1 year, they've found it, they know about it, it's 1 year, and they decide to wait another year to see what happens, whether there's going to be more damage.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing they can do about it. The contract says 1 year. It's 1 year. It's not 1 year and 6 months or 8 months or whatever.
So here's a true story. Just happened to me a couple of days ago regarding contracts, paperwork, and dotting I's and crossing T's. I show up to the property and I'm looking for the address, and I see a similar address, but I don't see the exact address that I have in my software. The funny thing is, I had the wrong address, but my GPS took me to the right place. That's what was really confusing me. I'm like, how'd that happen? So, all right, let me dismiss that for a minute. When I pulled up, my clients were standing on the curb waiting. That was on time. They were there a little bit earlier. And so I'm like, hey guys, I'm looking for this address. You're here for that? Yeah. I'm like, there's one number off. It's 202 I'm looking for. That says 201. And I don't see a 202. No, it's actually 201. I'm like, well, that's fine. So I'm thinking, so now my inner lawyer goes off. Ding, 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 ding. Okay, well, I'm about to walk into a house with the wrong address. My contract has the wrong address. Everything has the wrong address. So I'm like, okay, I can fix that. Right from my phone. I said, hang on, I gotta resend you your inspection contracts while I'm still on the curb. Haven't stepped on the property yet. And I redid everything, resent it. The guy opened his phone, ding, 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 done. Everything was done. So everything got changed. So my software actually updated the correct address, resubmitted 2 new inspection contracts. I did the home inspection and the sewer within a minute. I had it all done and ready to go. But that was me protecting myself, because as somebody, I've been down some legal roads in the past, and it's embedded in me now. Like I actually play it out in my head. Well, how would this happen? Let's say I overlooked this. Let's say I just ignore it and I use the address I had in the contract. I'm thinking, but what if there was a problem and then this came up and the first thing my lawyer says is, hey man, you got the wrong address on this house. That's a problem. I didn't know if it was going to be a problem or not. So I fixed it and I straightened it out. So what would happen if I didn't?
You had the same client. The same client was present at the same house they wanted to buy with an agent that said, this is the right house. It's simply a typographical error of which has no merit.
So I panicked for no reason.
I would say that panic is an understatement. I would suggest 2 gin tonics, shaken, not stirred, okay?
So I panicked myself. I wasn't panicked. I was just like, okay, I need to straighten this out. And because of the software I use, I was able to. That's my point. So everybody listening who's a home inspector and you're still living in the Stone Age back in the 80s, it's time to open the curtains and look outside, because there's a lot of new stuff out here. And you'll love it once you get it, and it's not expensive.
Okay. Again, the most relevant point is you are paid immediately. And it's not done in a check that bounces. Remember, You're in business to make money, not to be in court.
Exactly. And that brings up another scenario, which was, I believe, the day before that one, the one I just mentioned. I had a kind of an eventful week. So I had a repeat realtor refer me to a customer, which is great. And I send off all the paperwork after days of negotiating with them and them finally committing to saying yes. I guess they were trying to get the escrow open or something. And then the realtor's like, oh, John, they're just going to give you a check on the day of. I said, no, they're not giving me a check. So what do you mean? I said, I don't take checks. And if they read what I sent them, the first sentence says, we do not accept checks of any kind from anybody, business or personal. So I said, the link's in there, take care of it. So once again, you just got to kind of put your foot down and stop these things from spiraling out of control. Because once you say yes, okay to one, that realtor's going to remember that. And she's going to use that to push you around on the next one. That can happen. And I've seen other inspectors tell stories about stuff like that. I'm like, dude, what are you doing? I mean, is she running your business or are you running your business? You got to stick to your guns, man.